So welcome, everybody. We are just going to spend a moment to let people come into the room, and then I will start. So we'll just wait a few moments before the introductions. Okay, I think we are ready. And I want to welcome everybody to another installment of webinars for busy lawyers. We're so glad to have you here. I'm Amy Levine, the Director of Programs and Volunteers, and I'm going to be your host today, or your co-host today, with Laura Keeler, who is our Law Practice Technology Specialist. Our topic is subscription billing, a modern key to client retention, presented by Margaret Burke, whom I will introduce shortly. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to remind you of the confidential and free services Lawyers Concerned for Lawyers offers to support the well-being of the legal community. These include one-on-one consultations with licensed clinicians for mental health and substance use disorders, peer support groups, educational programs, consultations with our law practice advisors on firm management and professionalism. A few housekeeping notes. We love engagement, so please feel free to submit your questions using the Q&A or chat features, and we'll do our best to address them. Also, after the webinar, you'll receive a brief feedback survey, and your input helps us continue to improve our programming. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker, Margaret Burke. Margaret is the CEO and founder of MB Law Consulting, who brings decades of experience advising lawyers and law firm partners at small to mid-sized firms. And she specializes in law firm strategy, management, finance, and marketing, streamlining operations and scaling revenue, leading acquisitions, relocations, succession planning, and restructuring, and supporting newly established firms as they set a strong foundation. Margaret holds an MBA from Sawyer Business School, is a CLM certified legal manager, a yellow belt in Legal Lean Sigma, and a certified professional coach. More than that, she's a thoughtful and kind leader dedicated to helping law firms thrive. With that, I am going to hand it over to Margaret. Welcome.
Thank you, Amy. I am so excited to be here today, and I'm excited to talk about subscription billing and share some insight, ideally answer some of your questions towards the end, and give you an overview of how you might consider using subscription billing in your practices. So, Amy, if you don't mind, going to the next slide.
Yes.
Thank you. So today we're going to talk about a number of things. We're going to chat about subscription billing. What is it? I think we all know what it is, but we'll get a little bit more into detail. We'll touch on the challenges of current traditional billing within law firms and within legal practices. We'll talk about why subscription billing, steps to implementing, marketing, and just a broad overview of the different items for you to consider as you're considering whether or not this is good for your practice. So I'll start by saying that there are a number of practice areas that tend to be more conducive than others to subscription billing. And Amy, if you can go to the next slide, that would be great. Okay. So the areas that I have seen subscription billing include the areas on the slide. It's business, corporate law. HR and employment tends to be a very popular area for subscription billing. IP, trademark, copyright, family law. I'll give a little caveat on that because I think some family law attorneys may wonder how that could fit into their practice. But if you practice family law and you speak to your clients about co-parenting, that's an area that you could consider subscription billing. Estate planning, elder law, real estate, and landlord tenant law. So as part of this, I'll share that subscription billing is also conducive to services that you provide your clients that are recurring needs. Um, Also, if you have clients that have if it's a business client and they have a niche business and you could benefit them by being very deep and understanding what their business is, that's another area where subscription is helpful. And it doesn't tend to be useful if it is a one and done type of legal engagement. We'll talk about that a little bit more. So thank you. So the next slide, what is legal services subscription billing? So it really is a model of providing services to your clients in an ongoing engagement, and clients pay you typically a set amount at a certain time frame. So depending on the volume of your services, it could be monthly, it could be quarterly, it could be annual. I would say I have seen quarterly. If I had to rank the popularity that I've seen, I would say quarterly. Unless it's high volume, then it's monthly. And as part of this, as part of your work with clients, a service that could be in subscription billing is something that you are offering to your client and you're not charging them hourly for that service. So the benefit to your client is they have you available to them and they know that you deeply understand what they're doing, what their business or personal life is, and they're not getting charged every time they call you, and they can budget ahead of time for the services that you're providing. Some examples of services you may provide is unlimited consultations. I some of you may be reacting like, no way, that's too much. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But the unlimited consultation, I wouldn't word it as unlimited, but I would say ongoing consultations. And you could have a cap on that. And again, we'll touch on that in a little bit, but you can have a cap on some of these services. You could attend board meetings. Um, if your client has a business, team meetings. If it's a family, you could attend family meetings. So again, you could be part of their team attending events with your clients. Um, Business ongoing document review. That document could include vendors, knowing that you're going to review every vendor agreement before your client executes, and then also being available to proactively make sure that your client's vendors are fulfilling their obligations is another service. IP protection, ongoing monitoring of IP assets. And to repeat, subscription billing tends to be very popular and successful with services that are ongoing, not just one and done. And so challenges of traditional legal billing. So, the hourly model, it makes sense in many ways and will likely always be part of legal billing. I think with subscription billing, remembering that all your services do not need to be subscription and all of them do not need to be hourly, and thinking about ways to incorporate subscription, knowing that you may likely always have hourly. It depends on your practice area, and it also depends on the predictability of your services. But the challenges really are that clients can have anxiety about working with their attorneys. They may be concerned about being charged for every email, every phone call, and it puts you it conflicts your relationship with your client, or it can, because you of course should be compensated for your time and the value you provide to your clients. But in turn, your clients sometimes will question why you're billing them for a quick email. But we all know that emails aren't always quick. So it can create this conflict. It also can result in clients not always calling you to get your advice to proactively address a potential situation that they have. I think many folks here have probably had a situation where you thought to yourself, gee, I wish they called me sooner. We could have addressed this much earlier. I think that comes up a lot in numerous practice areas, but I'll touch on employment law. I think that is a great example of a practice area where if you had received the phone call when your client decided to take an action or something happened, you could have probably saved them a lot of money, heartache, and time. And the subscription model really encourages your clients to call you. Um, Another area of hourly billing that can be a challenge is the unpredictability of revenue. So when you are billing hourly, you don't always know. It's hard to predict ahead of time how much money you believe you'll be earning every month. And it's good to know projections so you can make decisions about hiring and other important decisions. And what happens often for lawyers, all of you, is there's almost a feast or famine type of situation that you can run into where the feast is you're straight out. You have a client emergencies, you have to drop everything and of course help your clients with these unplanned situations. And you may have very high hours that month. And of course, it revenue wise, once you bill, you reap the rewards. That psychologically can be challenging because it's almost like you're making, you're earning revenue, higher revenue when you're um, working very hard and you're putting in a lot of hours. Then you have a situation where we call it famine, where things may slow down. It could be around the holidays, 4th of July, the Christmas, New Year holidays. And you almost start to feel as though you don't have enough work. And then sure enough, January rolls around and you have a lot of hours. So it can create a lot of instability, not just revenue wise, but also your schedule. It can be very hard to schedule around being very busy and then having a lot of free time. So that's the feast or famine that tends to be common in the legal industry. It's just the nature of the business, but it also tends to be more common for smaller firms or attorneys that are on their own because you're the only one that can do the work. And if a client calls you with an emergency, you drop everything to help them. The subscription billing helps create some predictability, proactivity, and addressing things before they come an emergency. The other challenge with traditional legal billing is it's it's hard to plan time off. You know, it can be, it could be a financial decision. It also could be the fact that most of your work is reactive and it can be really hard to plan around that. So if your goals are to have a certain level of ability to take time off and leverage your team, for some of these services, the subscription billing does help with that, where the hourly model can be very challenging. And if you go to the next slide, thank you. So why subscription billing? So subscription billing can enhance your client relationships. It can bring you closer to your clients. You have a deeper understanding of their personal and their business situations. Um, It can be what they call in business speak, the word is sticky. You may have heard that word. And that means essentially that you are providing a service where there's a high likelihood of an ongoing relationship. So subscription billing is sticky. You develop a relationship, you have this recurring revenue, and it helps you be more of the go-to person for your clients. Where if it's hourly, you may be the go-to person, but you may not be because they don't want to get billed. So again, the subscription model helps you say to your clients, call me first. I will advise you, and then you can direct them to other resources if needed. Subscription billing is also very helpful from the client's perspective. One is you are proactively solving problems for them before they become a bigger problem. Um, they know that they're going to have predictable billing from you. It's not a big surprise if they're not getting a high bill and then a low bill. Like, it's predictable for your clients. A lot of cost-conscious clients do like subscription billing. They just really do need to understand what they're getting. So it really helps your clients put them at ease. And mentioned this a few times, but I'll say it again. It really is a proactive approach to client management, and can help you develop systems internally to provide services proactively versus you being the one doing it. You can leverage your team members. So that brings us to the key steps to implement. So where do you begin? I was sharing with Amy and Laura prior to us getting on, joining the presentation, that I think that where to begin can be challenging for some because of the desire to have things be perfect and to feel as though you want to only roll this out if it is perfect. And then you may lean towards thinking about those clients that this wouldn't be a good fit for. And and that's okay. This will not be for every client. It will not be for every practice area. And it will also not be 100% of your services. But I suspect that you may have some services that part of it could be subscription. So, where to begin? Assess suitability. You know, are there services that you find come up often with your clients? And do you have clients that continually need your support ongoing? Again, contract review, vendor management, employment law, IP. Do you provide estate planning, elder law? We didn't get into that yet, but we will in a moment. So think about the suitability of your services, and you can look back at the services you provide and start to list out the things that would benefit from ongoing review to your clients. Um, are your services repetitive? Can you standardize them? Can you create a checklist? Can you create like a cadence with your clients where you do something for them at the same time every year? In addition, and I mentioned this earlier, but are the services you provide, will it benefit your clients and you for you to have a very deep understanding of them and their businesses? That's another area where subscription billing can be suitable. And then the frequency of client needs. You have clients that, for you, they may be very profitable because they call you a lot, but there's a lot of emergencies. Would they benefit from you proactively addressing things so there's less emergencies, but then you have the revenue um, predictability versus the up and down? So one is assess suitability. Think about the services you're offering. And if you have a few clients that this might benefit from, focus on them and what you do from them for them and note it. Next is define your packages. So I would recommend starting with 1 or 2 packages and coming up with what that package means. So it could be a basic package where I'll use employment law because I think that's a really easy example, where you say once a year you're going to do certain trainings, you're going to review their policies. You're going to be available up to a certain amount of hours a month to address ongoing situations. That could be a basic. A more advanced package at a higher price point be you could be present for some of these meetings. You could proactively meet with a leadership team to make sure that situations are being handled properly, but come up with 1 or 2 packages and then create a visual. And I have an example in one of the slides, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But as you're defining your packages, it can be challenging to describe to someone what they're getting because some of it is not tangible. They're not getting a book, they're not getting a widget. So thinking about creating something that you can then give to your clients or your prospects or whoever you're sharing your billing model to so they can see what they're getting. And we'll go back to that. Step 3 is set your pricing structure. I've found that this is likely one of the most challenging parts of subscription billing, and you likely may not get the right number for your first few clients. And that's where I think it's really important to start small, have language in your engagement that notes you may adjust pricing in the future, which I'm sure you would do this on your own, but I want to note that. So it gives you some comfort that if you discover that you price something incorrectly, you can revisit how to address that later on. But think about, will it be a flat amount every month, every quarter? That will depend on the service you're providing. I would think back to employment law. It could be monthly, depending on the size of the client or the type of industry or their need. It could be quarterly. If it's estate planning, it might be an annual fee that you charge to do certain things every year to make sure that their assets and their families are protected and that the documents are current. So think about the pricing, and then I would recommend estimating how much time you would spend on this particular item within your package, and then increase it by 20%. Take your hourly rate. Does that look right? Think about other people on your team that can be involved in helping you provide the service and their rates, and come up with a number that you're comfortable quoting, but you're comfortable also reward you for the time that you're devoting to this matter. And as part of the pricing structure, be very clear on the scope of the services you're providing. And this is where I would recommend you will list out clearly what's included, and then list out clearly what is not included, so that your clients, if they have a situation that something goes to litigation, I think that would be incredibly difficult to have it all rolled into a flat fee, if not impossible. So you would have, like, your goal is to avoid litigation. Your goal is to do X, Y, Z. That is included in subscription. But if it goes to something outside the scope, you could consider offering a lower hourly rate than you charge your non-subscription clients to manage something. So you'll have a buffer in there. And then another model that I've seen is a tiered model, where the price point may be at a certain level, a little bit higher, up to a certain amount of deliverables or hours, and then it could decrease. So think about the pricing, be really clear on what is and it is not included, and really think about who on your team can help you deliver the services to free you up. And that's where you'll start to see the benefits of freeing your time up. And then a third point on that is to really track all your time. I highly recommend this. I think that some folks may be interested in subscription billing, part of it because of the time tracking component, and thinking that perhaps you don't need to track time, but it's really important to track your time, and your team should track time for your subscription bill services, because you do want to go back and evaluate the profitability of that matter in relation to your time. Quite often in the beginning, your time is much higher than it will be in the future for each client. There could be an intake process. Ideally, you would have someone helping you with that. And as you're developing your subscription service, you will likely spend much more time in the first few clients than you will the ones later on, because with the first few, you'll be developing the model with them. But please track your time and calendar. It could be once a month, once a quarter is probably more realistic, to take a look at the hours spent and what the fee is. And that will help you readjust and reevaluate as needed as you start to bring more clients onto your subscription billing platform. So technology, we have Laurie here with us, who's actually a law firm technology expert. We got cut off. I was starting to ask her some questions about that, because technology, I'd say pricing comes up, and then how to deliver the service, how to leverage technology is another area. And I would say that as you're getting started, you likely may not have technology in place yet to support your plans. And I would say that is okay, as long as you are documenting the services that you're providing and thinking about which items can eventually be more automated, and how you can leverage either your current technology. And if your current technology can't accommodate, for example, managing recurring tasks, thinking about other options for technology. I've seen a lot of firms that have a time and billing system that's great, but it really doesn't do everything they need to automate some of the service offering, how to billing. So in the beginning, know that there are almost too many tools out there, but know they're out there. Think about the services, keep a record, and then start to think about incorporating technology, incorporating, if you're fortunate to have people supporting you, paralegal, administrative support, other attorneys, think about how they can do some of the work for you, utilize and assigning through technology. A few programs I'll mention, they're not law firm centric, but I have clients that use it. We use it internally, and it's an easy program, and it's very conducive to tracking next steps and projects. Is Monday.com. There's also Airtable. So you could get a free subscription to one of those and just sort of test it out, but then make a decision a few months after you roll out your subscription billing, like what program will you use? And if you need help, seek help, because there are a lot of people out there that can help you implement technology. But in order to really gain the maximum benefits of subscription billing over time, technology will likely be a big part of it. There are many programs. So we were chatting before the call about we see certain programs that many law firms use, and they're great. Well, I'll throw out Clio. There's my cases, Filevine, and some of them are better than others in tracking activities. If you can use your existing time and billing to track activities in your subscription model, great. If you can't, I would add another technology onto your stack. Also, within technology for subscription billing, it's a flat amount, so you can automate your billing process because it's not an hourly model. You can know that you bill once a month, with a quarter. You can set that up in advance. Client portals, many folks use them now. I would say that with subscription billing, that could be part of your value add, is that you will very actively, as you work on things for your clients, they can start to build their portal that they have access to, and they can see in real time the work you're doing for them. I would implement, the use of your portal if you're not already doing that. And technology is growing so quick now. Every time you turn around, there's something new. There's a neat program that I was actually just looking at called FIDU, FIDU, that is very much geared towards law firms in automating tasks. So there's a ton out there. So know that at that point, there are resources for you. And a point I said earlier is just plan, and don't be surprised if in the beginning of your subscription billing services, you'll spend a lot more time, but know that the time you're spending now will help you later on. Thank you, Amy. Great. So this is a picture of a handout that I'm happy to share. If you find it helpful, feel free to reach out via email. So what this is, it's an example. So right now we're going to talk about marketing your services. So there's a few things you can do. Let's say you've come up with your model, you feel comfortable that you're ready to roll it out. How do you get started? Existing clients are probably the easiest place to begin. You have a relationship. You can go back and see how much time you have spent with them and how much money they've invested with you. And you can come up with a proposal for them. And to share that proposal, it can be a challenge to speak to it without a visual. So I highly recommend visuals. What you're seeing on the screen here is just a sample. And what this is, it's a marketing piece. My logo's on it, but your logo could be on this. And again, I'm happy to share it. You can take it and put your logo on it and repurpose it. But what this is it shows what a client can expect if the service you're offering is performed on a monthly basis. So if your services would benefit from something happening once a month, it could be proactively reviewing contracts, it could be providing trainings, whatever it is, think about it and put it in a visual so that as you're speaking to your current clients or potential clients, after you share your information with them, you can send them something, because sometimes it's hard to understand the value in subscription billing until people can see it. So number one, think about your existing clients, compare what they've spent with you, and think about the things that if you were involved before something happened, you could have saved them time and money and heartache. Two, think about outlining this in a way that you can share it with them visually. Start to write. If you enjoy writing, write articles, very thought leadership focused, that you bring in your services and how you help your clients with subscription billing. Social media is a great way to, FAQ the difference between your service subscription and others hourly, and the pros and cons. So social, seek Google reviews from clients. Once you have clients on your subscription model, seek reviews. It's okay to ask. Usually people are happy to give reviews. Get those reviews, write articles, have information you can visually show to people, and spread the word. And again, starting with your existing clients is usually the easiest way to proceed. Monitoring and scaling. So gather client feedback. Clients do like usually to give feedback and appreciate being asked. And, if you rolled out your services to an existing client, it'll make it even easier to, after the first quarter, ask for their feedback, you know, take that feedback, note it, and use it to improve your services. Make sure that you're compliant with any ethical compliance related items that could come up. We see many smaller firms will have an outside ethics council that they'll go to. So anything in question, just make sure you're compliant. Um, be open to refining your packages. You will have likely spent a lot of time developing your packages, and although you will likely learn things that could be different, it's okay. Be open to that. Take that feedback and make changes, and enlist support. So really, you don't have to do everything yourself. There are folks out there that can help you implement, and ideally, you will have people on your team that can help you start to provide some of the services, because it's almost a rinse and repeat. So if you're doing the same things for clients, um, providing the same services, over time, you can have someone on your team do a lot of that work for you proactively, then give it to you for final review. So enlist outside help, enlist folks on your team, and then think about where, as your services grow, someone else could be brought on to do it for you. So think about scaling once you have a certain number of clients on board. And so the takeaways, subscription billing can really transform client relationships and give you some level of revenue stability. So if you know you have a certain number of clients every month, at least you know you have that coming in every month. And then you, of course, will have the hourly component on top of it. Um, it is really a modern approach to law firm billing. It doesn't mean that it's right for everyone, and it doesn't mean that hourly isn't good or modern, but it is an approach that people are looking for now and asking for it. So being prepared to speak to it and offer it is very helpful. And then third, like, begin with a strategic approach. And I'm not recommending to try to have it be perfect, but really take a step back and think about what your goals are. Is it to have more free time? Is it to have less surprises? Is it to be able to utilize your team in a way that's not a fire drill? Think about that and structure your first few packages around that. And you could do a phased approach. Start small. You could try to have 1 or 2 clients within the first 6 months, and then learn from there, take a break, and just do it in phases if you need to. And seek help. There's a lot of folks out there that can help. So this is a quote, Abraham Lincoln, such a great quote. Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. So really noting your services, taking some time, planning. If there's something in your plan that you think, gee, this won't work, this is impossible, I can't do it, continue with the plan, because quite often the item might be technology. It might be you don't have the support. Develop the plan and then think about how to solve the areas that are concerned for you. Don't try not to like stop because there's an obstacle. So plan ahead, and And I wish you luck. I'm excited for you, and I'm incredibly happy to jump on a call and talk more about this. And again, I'm happy to share that handout also.
So thank you so much, Margaret. This was really, it was insightful, it was helpful. One of the things that stood out to me that I think would save headaches on both sides, the client as well as the lawyer, is that I do think people hesitate, clients will hesitate about calling their lawyer. They know they're going to be billed for every single minute. And so I think this takes that fear out of it, and it can save, as you talked about, headaches in the long run. Where,
Mhm.
again, the sooner you know about something as the lawyer, the sooner you can do something.
Yes.
And, Laura, again, I don't know if you want to say anything. We do have a few questions and comments. Um, but I will, Laura, if you want to say anything before we go there.
Sure. So I think that this is such a timely presentation, Margaret. We're so glad that you have come on with advances in technology as people are able to systematize and automatize their processes more with the advent of AI, document automation, document assembly. They're finding that it is quicker, especially to produce documents. And so in that ways, hourly billing is not only not as much of a benefit for the lawyer as they're learning how to do things faster. But as you noted, the clients want that predictability. This is something we've seen from everything from in-house to individual consumers, that this is something the clients are really demanding. So going forward, we're seeing client demand for these alternative fee arrangements, whether it's subscription billings, flat fee, and others. So I think that this is really the move into the future. And thank you so much for telling us about it. This was very helpful.
Thank you, Laura, and Amy. And Laura, you just said something that I think is interesting, and I didn't think of it earlier, is what happens with the billable hour model is as firms, attorneys, practices, people invest time into being more efficient, they're investing in software, they're investing in training. They end up passing that savings on to their clients because they're spending less time on the matter. So everyone wants to provide excellent service to their clients and provide very high value, and the subscription is providing high value with less time and helping you reap the rewards of your investment in being more efficient in technology.
And earlier, Margaret, you had mentioned about perfection, and somebody did make a comment that perfection is the enemy of good. So anyway, that was, I thought, a good point. Somebody also mentioned this was extremely helpful. Thank you. And asked for your email address. I did send that out through that chat. But Margaret, I don't know if you want to just announce it really quickly for
Oh,
everybody
sure.
to make sure they can get in touch with you.
Definitely. Yep. So it's Margaret, Margaret, at mblawconsulting.com. So Margaret at MB as in boy, LAW consulting.com.
Excellent. We do have a few questions for you. It's somebody mentions the subscription fees equals client funds. What are the IOLTA accounting requirements?
So my answer is it does depend. It will depend, of course, on when you're providing the service. And that's where, if you have a question, I would reach out to an ethics attorney. I hate to like sort of pull that up and not answer, but it does depend. And that is an area where it is worth making sure that you are complying with IOLTA requirements. If you are, billing quarterly for services that you haven't provided yet, there's a good chance it's IOLTA. But quite often, you may be ongoing providing services and it may not be IOLTA. So I'm being a little vague because it depends on the circumstances, but I would definitely reach out, document the answers, and just make sure that you're handling your client funds correctly.
I'll just add on to that. There is a Massachusetts IELTS committee, and they have a frequently asked questions page for attorneys on their website. And you can also email their executive director if you have questions beyond it. They'd be able to speak to this more.
Thank you.
And I would also add that if somebody wanted to reach out to us, we do have a law practice advisor that could help with answering that question as well. So lots of options out there. We have another person who said, by our nature, lawyers are risk adverse. Many of us are probably dreaming up the worst case scenarios. What pushback have your clients seen from their clients after a subscription agreement has been put in place? Do clients complain about things being out of scope? Do they expect heightened response times, act more entitled?
Great question. I genuinely have not heard from any of the clients I work with after rolling it out that they've had challenges with people being unhappy. It doesn't mean it hasn't happened, but I haven't heard that. I think that you flagged one thing that is likely could happen is folks will start to maybe expect a lot more from you because you're on a flat amount. And that's where being crystal clear in your scope of engagement and discussing it really clearly minimizes that situation. Um, and and then setting a cap, it depending on the type of law practice that you have, having a cap, having that as an example, a reduced hourly rate once they hit that cap, and in having it clear in the scope will help prevent someone from being unhappy with your subscription services because you would have been very transparent in the beginning.
We have another question. I provide divorce and other mediation. I try to get through mediations in 3 to 4 months. Any ideas for tailoring subscription billing to this kind of service?
So I'll share about my company and something that we do because it relates. So we work with law firms, we provide consulting, and we pretty much begin every engagement at 6 months because you need that amount of time to make a difference in their lives. And then what happens typically is it continues, hopefully, maybe at a different scope later. So I would suggest that you consider having a 6-month engagement, for example, and then having like a phase 2, which will likely be a lot less time for you, but will still offer them your continual consulting and advisory services at a different rate. So I would, in the example you just shared, I would have a certain rate for 6 months, have clearly outlined what you expect, what you'll be doing for them, and then have an option for ongoing.
Excellent. We have another question. Could this work in immigration law? Curious on your thoughts. And then this same person said, I think some practices might benefit from a hybrid of hourly and flat fee for some core work and then monthly or quarterly billing after that.
Yeah, excellent point. The second part of your point is spot on. I would expect that I don't want to say most, but a lot of legal services could benefit from a hybrid because certain things are unpredictable. The immigration, boy, I think it could depend on who you're representing. If you're representing a company, absolutely. If you're representing an individual, it would depend on, is it a one and done? No. So it probably wouldn't be subscription if someone, wants to get citizenship or, but if it's an ongoing need for someone, then yes.
I'll just note
Excellent.
too that immigration attorneys that I've worked with, they will sometimes have staged fees, such as up to a particular phase will be this amount. Typically, they'll have that as a flat fee, but it could be where immigration cases are taking so long now that you're able to have those phased approaches to come into subscription billing. As Margaret notes, this may be relevant for some of there are about 19 different sub areas of immigration, and it may be more specific if you're working with companies or for visa requirements than, for example, refugee status.
I just want to comment on one of the points or questions that somebody asked earlier about maybe clients start to feel entitled and something along those lines. One of the things that we at LCL actually talk about are establishing boundaries. And so I think, as what Margaret talked about, yes, you want to plan and come up with the best subscription billing for you, but there are clients that might start to go outside of this. And I think that's something that if folks are struggling with that, is reaching out to one of our clinicians. We also have other webinars on establishing boundaries and the best way to phrase these things to your client so you maintain a strong relationship. Because again, you don't want to burn out. You want to have your free time when you need the free time. But again, also holding on to the client. So I just wanted to mention that. I think that's a really good point. And, there are clearly some pros and cons to subscription billing, and it does depend on practice, your practice, et cetera. We do have another comment. The lawyer must differentiate between a payment plan and subscription billing, or the clients will get confused.
It's very true. Interestingly, I spoke with an attorney this morning, and it was my first time meeting her. And I mentioned I had this presentation, and I was telling her about it. And she started talking about retainers. And so she automatically thought, and I explained, oh no, this is different. So the difference is this is ongoing support. You're almost like a member of your client's team, ongoing support for a certain amount of money, flat amount. And having this outlined in writing very clearly will help people understand that this is not a retainer that you're drawing from. It is a flat amount that they're paying you to provide a particular service to them. And I'll repeat, really having something in writing helps reduce misunderstandings.
I think that's a great point. As we've learned as lawyers, although I'm not a lawyer, but get things in writing.
Yep.
I don't see any other questions or comments. Laura, did you have any other thoughts?
Sure. So a couple things on your last point. This goes back to, again, the scope. The mutual understanding is something, Margaret's one of her penultimate slides was about the preparation, not only setting up your systems, but in making sure that you and your clients are on the same page for what tier of subscription model they want. Are there caps in place? For example, up to 10 boarding meetings you would assist them with or something. Hearing feedback from your clients is important because you won't have this fully worked out the first few times. That's okay. You can refine your systems. Margaret talked about the importance of time tracking to make sure you're not undercutting yourself, so that you are providing a strong value to the clients, but also making profit. So all of these are important things. And to go back to not strive for perfection. This is an ongoing process. Speaking of this, Margaret, are there pitfalls or challenges that you've seen people fall into when starting a subscription billing process?
I have, yes, there are. The reason that attorneys are so valuable is because you're precise, you look at every detail, you want to reduce the risk, and that can also prevent some folks from moving forward. So a pitfall is taking the what ifs and then taking that what if and having that make the decision for everything. So there will always be what ifs, and that's where your scope will explain what's outside of scope. Also, being comfortable, or if you are comfortable with knowing that your first client, you may find that, oops, okay, I spent a little more time on them than I wanted to, and I would have made more money if that's your goal. If I was hourly, just accepting that that will happen the first few clients, and there will be a lot of investment. And so what I've seen delay folks who are moving forward is trying to figure out the pricing and getting that perfect. And pricing is critical, but that's where you have in scope and outside scope to give yourself like some bumpers. And then knowing that it doesn't have to be perfect. And if you can get past that, which you can, then I think that, you know, if you're interested, you'll be in a good place. You'll be able to move forward.
That is great. I'll just note too that if you are newer to flat fee or subscription billing and you're really not sure how to start with pricing, there was a Startup Alley competition winner a couple years ago, Alt Fee, which actually you can plug in a lot of variables and it will suggest a pricing
Oh,
range
wow.
for you based on your area. And as Margaret mentioned, there's also companies like Fidoo that are really tailored for helping attorneys with subscription billing. Margaret, I'm wondering too, as we close out, for people that may be saying, oh, this is really interested, but I'm just not sure how to get started, what would
Mhm.
you say are the first one or two steps that they should be thinking about?
Sure. Having a document, notebook, where you list out things as you think of them and do them for your clients that could possibly be part of subscription billing. Starting to document and then starting to think about like the frequency of that service and which of your existing clients could benefit from a flat fee amount would be I think defining your service, like what need are you filling? What pain point in the market are you filling? And noting that. And then if you are struggling with moving forward, seek help. You know, Amy mentioned they have so many resources. They get help because sometimes it's hard to do it yourself.
Margaret, is that something that if somebody really wanted your guidance and your expertise, is that something you do? You can help them set the
Absolutely.
plan out. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And would be happy to speak with anyone here just as a speak because you're at the presentation. Also have to be available if you think you may want to move forward and need help. So absolutely.
Excellent. Well, again, I think this was a great presentation. This is new and exciting, and I think sometimes people do struggle with new things, new technology. But as we know, sometimes it's the wave of the future, and sometimes you have to, ride that wave. So again, I'm excited for it, and I know there's again probably some hesitation, but Margaret clearly is a great resource. So we did put her email in the chat, and also you'll receive this recording shortly, and so you can review her information and certainly reach out. So thank you, Margaret, for your expertise. This was really so wonderful. And again, the fact that we had so many questions, I think, speaks to the interest level here.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It was great to be here today.
Thank you all, and don't forget to fill out our survey. Again, it helps us with future programming. Thank you. All
Thank you
right.
all.
Thanks. Bye-bye.